Hey, welcome back to Hold the Air podcast. I'm Rob Forbes. Seated to my left is John Cosme. We're retired Lansing police officers, and we are super pumped for who's in the room today. Just as a little snippet, there is over 100 years of police service in the studio with us today. Cosme, kick it off. Who we got?
Hey, so these guys were legends to us when we were growing up doing the job. And the job of canine is fascinating. If you don't know anything about it, it is a wonderful tool. It saves lives. It does all kinds of things. So I would like each of you, if you could, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background, what brought you to LPD.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. I mean, it's an honor, quite honestly. And I could say this back to you guys. I mean, the respect and the work ethic that you brought to LPD is something that people should aspire to be like you guys. And what you're doing now in giving back to the law enforcement community, you know, policing is a very noble profession, and I think we can all of us in this room can, be proud of that. The nobility that you brought more recently than us, and the service and the dedication that we had not only to the community, to the department, to our families, to our kids. I mean, that says a lot about everybody in this room. So my name's Norm Naimy. I grew up in Southfield, Michigan. My parents and grandparents came from the Middle East, Lebanon, and Syria, back in the 1920s and 30s. When there was a large influx of immigrants it was Persia back then, the Middle East, and came to Highland Park, Detroit. My family opened up grocery stores. It's kind of when it all started with, Middle Easterns being involved in the party store, the grocery store business. Grew up in Southfield, graduated, went to Oak Community College, got my degree, my bachelor's degree eventually. Back, I was trying to get into police work like many of us, and, totally opposite of today. I mean, we would walk in, there'd be 500 people testing for 10 spots. I remember going to test for Southfield Police Department. You'd go in, literally 500 people there, and they'd have 10 open spots, 5 open spots. Now, so, you were really proud. Like, I was very proud. I knew nothing about Lansing, but I heard it was a great department. I applied. I took me twice, 2 rounds to get in, and finally I got in. And, you felt really, really good about yourself, and you felt good about FTO and graduating from that, and successfully completing FTO, and you felt, it was the first day that I felt really, really, really good about myself and proud of myself. When I finally accomplished and got on to LPD and got into police work and broke in, and my career at LPD was 25 years. February of '94 to February of 2019. I didn't promote. I worked canine the majority of my time, other than the 4 years that I spent as an ATF task force officer. I worked the street either with canine or patrol. Had a great career, great time. I miss it. I don't lie. I'm not one of those people that I can't wait to get out of this place, can't wait to retire. I felt like when I left, I lost my keys. Didn't know what to do with myself. You miss that camaraderie, you miss that identity of the mission that you're on, having a positive impact on the community. All of a sudden, poof, one day that's gone. So, but I look back very proud of what we accomplished, what we all accomplished in this room. I think we have a lot to be proud of here, and as most police officers do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. What about you, Mac?
So I'm Mark McAleer. I'm a Lansing kid, believe it or not. Born in Sparrow, Lansing Public Schools, Lansing Eastern High School. Kind of kicked around a little bit before that. Ended up going into the Marine Corps. Went into the Marine Corps, came back to Michigan State, graduated from Criminal Justice Academy out there, and started applying for jobs by FBI, DEA, CIA, all of any letter. I applied for that joker, and it was a time, like Norm said, back then it was different. You weren't top of the list back then. It was hard. So I did a few menial jobs just to pay the bills, but decided to enter into the academy here in Lansing. Went through that, graduated, and got hired during the academy by LPD, which I was extremely thankful for. Accepted the job, and like within that week, I got hired by the FBI, the DEA, Denver Police Department, Long Beach Police, but all tons of acceptance letters came in, but I'd give them my acceptance already and just went for it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I went out a little early on my shoulder. I went out on a medical a little bit early, which was fine. But the vast majority of my time I was K9. Also did, I was start K9, and then I did start team, and then right back to patrol.
Yeah.
Never wanted to promote, just wanted to work the road, wanted to be a cop.
Yep.
So that was my jam right there.
Oh, dude, yeah, you were that guy. You know what I mean? It's like when Mac showing up to the lineup, sat down, looked around, we're like, oh shit.
Yep.
Mac's here.
It's gonna be a good night.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good night.
Yeah, that's true.
What we created there, I mean, to be able to come back and talk like we've never missed a beat, that's the camaraderie you build. And this guy to my left, you're right. This is my brother.
Yeah.
We've been through so much together, and it never stops, man. You can just pick up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I love how you said that, Mac, because for us, that's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what this podcast is all about. We were so, and Norm put it best, right? Like, we gave everything we had, and just to have that unplug, it just didn't taste right. And so as we were putting some ideas together about what can we do to keep that candle lit, so to speak, and have, let's face it, we've had a lot of influence out there, right? But our bloodline traces back to guys like you, and for us to not want to pay that back in some small way, guys come in here and chop it up on a podcast and talk about the good old days, and maybe, just maybe, something from it can be taken to a brand new person today, and kind of pay it forward. So it really all comes together, and I thank you guys, man. So hey, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
Cheers, brother.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
With that said, too, is we want to honor the men that came before, men and women, of course.
Yeah.
But the people that came before us who really made the history of LPD, we just hope to live up to their standard. I mean, obviously your father, and all the great, so many characters down there.
Yeah.
That you just hope to put in enough work to make them proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, to carry it on and, make for dudes like Z and his crew coming up,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
maybe
man.
they can make their own story and push forward too, but that was kind of my thing, is I always wanted to put in enough work each night to make those guys that came before me happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. 100%. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
And,
you almost were like, because remember how it was? We had the North Precinct, then we had the South Precinct, right?
Yeah.
So you spent most of your time in the South Precinct, and you spent most of your time in the North Precinct. So when K9 stuff happened, I know it was competitive.
It was.
I know it was competitive.
yeah.
In the sense that once LPD had to use the dog. We're not out there just having fun with the dog. The dog's a tool, but you'd hear a long track on the south end, and then in custody, and then you'd hear one in the north end.
All the time,
and
man.
then you set up the perimeter, and you almost knew, like 8 minutes into the track, whether or not you were going to find this guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you had some K9 officers that were just resilient. and you sat on that perimeter and you're like, there's no way we're gonna find this guy. Hold the air, hold the air, hold the air.
Yeah.
We got him in the shed.
Yep.
And you're like, oh damn.
Yeah.
You know.
And being successful, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but being a successful canine handler, you cannot do that without the support of patrol. And what I mean by that is somebody runs from, you stop a car that was just involved in an armed robbery, and the suspect bails out, and the suspect runs. So what's the key to getting that person into custody? The key is to get them what we used to call go to the ground.
Yep.
The way you do that is a perimeter.
Yep.
It's the only way. Or the person's just going to keep running until they can get away, and
Yep.
you're not going to find them
Right.
because you're going to keep track, and you're always going to be one step behind.
Yeah.
And what LPD is great about is setting up those perimeters, locking down an area that we need, and to secure that person and get them go to the ground. And that's our success. Your success as a canine handler, it's you and the dog. It's that symbiotic team work relationship. However, it's not going to happen unless you got a perimeter, you got a building secured, you got a building locked down, whatever, an area locked down, whatever it might be. Our success was mostly due to the fact that we had the support of the patrol officers.
Yeah, and it's like the one thing that happens where we literally gel together as a team.
Yeah.
Like we go to calls, right? Individually or with backup, we handle whatever call we're dealing with. But once K9 got deployed, everybody had a job.
Yeah.
Find your corner, find your spot. Stay in your car. Don't contaminate the track, because it's hard sometimes.
It's hard
to stay in the car, and the K9. You got to trust what the K9's handling. And then with you guys, I can remember just hearing your tone, whether or not, they're on it. You can tell they're on it.
And it's like Mark and I always realized, if there was some handlers over the years that would get really, really irritated if there was a cop out of their car on a perimeter point searching a backyard. It's contaminating the track. You got to realize it's hard. It's hard to sit in that car and not do anything,
right.
and have the last 3 tracks you had with this canine team that you were sitting a perimeter point on didn't find anybody. So, so you're like, it's hard to just sit in the car and do nothing.
Yeah.
So that you have to understand that.
How long do you think it took? Like, so you get the training for the dog, all that. When you're on your own, on the street, how long did it take you to feel confident in how you the chemistry between you and your dog?
12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months.
Oh, yeah. And so much about being a canine handler is you have to be able to read your dog. How do dogs communicate? They communicate through body language. You have to be able to read that body language. You have to know when the dog is, you can never take the dog out of the dog. A dog is going to be a dog. So if there's some, dog urine on a tree and you're passing it and the dog goes over and starts a male dog that's an alpha male, they're gonna want to sniff that in all likelihood.
Yep.
You have to be able to respond to that, read that. That's one of the examples.
Yeah.
Most important thing is that you have to be able to read the dog's body language when you're on a track, for example, knowing that when you're close to the suspect, how the dog's behaving.
Yeah.
That way you can communicate to your backup, hey man, we're close, watch your 6, watch yourself, something like that. Sure. And that's super important.
Yep.
And that takes time. It takes time. It's easy to train the dog. It's very difficult to train the handler. Very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a little.
But once it starts clicking, man, oh man, look out.
Yeah, man.
Because it is just so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. So when our group came into service with, we were brought into service, we went through our training, and we had they had like a little celebration up at the North Precinct. They were going to introduce the dog to the media and newspapers and such. And I'm a South Precincter, and I was getting my dog ready to go up. You know, he's all brushed out, and he's big bad chesty coming out there, and I got on my blue, like the patrol blues, because we didn't even have I didn't have my fatigues yet, and I was driving going up Cedar Street, and they put out, we got one running right over by not Baker, but just over by Washington.
Yeah.
On my way up there, I went and got the dog out, tracked the dude down the alley, just put him in a hold position till the people run and caught him. Just grabbed the dog, put him back in the car, and went to the introduction. So Barney was all mad. Where were you? I'm like, I was tracking the guy.
Yeah.
But
Because you want to use your dog any chance you can use it. Right?
absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want him sitting in the back
Yep.
seat.
So I knew right away. I'm like, ooh, this works.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man.
that was pretty cool.
Your dog was Chesty, right?
Yes, sir.
So how many years was Chesty in service?
I think he made it 11.
Okay.
We were just talking about this in my home today. My son got his dog fixed, and I told him that I got Chesty fixed late in his career, but I'm absolutely convinced it put 2 years up more on the road for that dog.
Okay.
It just, prevents the cancers and the diseases and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think he made it 11.
To circle back to what you were talking about, Norman, we got a lot of reps in those days because, and I know you guys are going to agree with this, the mentality was, if you are a criminal and you run from the police, you better expect that the Lansing Police Department is going to come after you with everything we've got.
Yeah.
Right. And that is from canine to patrol to up and down. Right. And I think that from our perspective of never being a canine handler before, knowing our role as patrol, the way it really clicked for me. And I don't even know where I was when I heard this or whatever, but whoever it was talking about the hockey player Wayne Gretzky. And Wayne Gretzky, one of the most prolific, if not the most prolific hockey player of ever. And in the interview with Wayne Gretzky, they were talking about he's not the fastest, he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest. So why is it that you're coming out here and crushing record after record after record? And this is what Wayne Gretzky said as the response to his approach. He said, I skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. And that really clicked for me as knowing my role on perimeter, because if you're chasing, if someone is actively in pursuit of someone that's fleeing the police and they're calling out, I'm westbound from this location, I'm not going to go to their location. I'm going to get ahead of it so I can cut the guy off in his path and get that perimeter established. And a lot of times the first car on perimeter, that first main intersection that is going to separate north, south, east, and west, if you can look both directions and seal it off, man, we really try to get there fast and at least be able to say to the other units that were responding, okay, I'm on Saginaw. I can tell you right now, there's no way he got north or south of Saginaw. And then the perimeter starts there, and then you guys just do your thing. And man, it was magical.
That was
magical.
That right there, Rob, is the key to the teamwork that it took to get somebody into custody. And you were talking about, the people knew that if you ran, we were going to come at you, and we're going to do our best to catch you. And that served as a very important deterrent. To the criminals, the people that wanted to break the law.
Yeah.
The people that intended to break the law. And it was very important. But that you just described the key to the success of a canine unit wherever it's at. And we didn't have the advantage of drones back then to get up in the air and get the aerial surveillance and so forth. It was there was a lot going on, and it was us. It was us. It was a team.
Yeah.
And the foundation of any good canine team is obedience.
Yeah, man.
You know, that's where you start. That's where you forge the relationship. Hey, I'm in charge. You're not, dog. You know, and the obedience is really the foundation for everything, because you're not going to be successful if you're not obedient. And also, you know, you don't want anything to go wrong. You don't want a use of force incident by the dog, because a dog is a use of force, needless to say. And you don't want a use of force incident that's unnecessary or can be considered excessive because you didn't have control over your dog.
Right.
And, you know, and again, that's, you know, you never want to lose control, but your safety is paramount.
Yeah.
You know, your safety, the safety of the people around you, the safety of your fellow officers, the community obviously is number one. That, you know, you have to have, you know, canines really provide an extra level of safety, but they can also draw somebody into doing something really bad. That's why your chances, you know, as a canine handler of being involved in some type of critical incident, they increase because you're going really after the worst of the worst. Yeah. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of times where you track somebody and the dog you believe is close by the body language, the breathing, and you're like, we're close to this person. And all of a sudden you look and the dog stops and turns around. And you realize who's behind you. The bad guys in the bushes, the bad guys in the shed behind you, and you just passed them. You know, that's you know, that's not the best feeling in the world, but it's a good feeling once you turn around.
And win.
I tell you that deterrent thing, I experienced that a handful of times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I can recall a situation where I went to check a guy for open container, Christopher and Cross, and got out, and he had a pistol in his waistband. Big boy, I can't remember what it looked like, a cannon. And as I'm walking towards him, he's walking away. I go to get control of him. He reaches, and the fight's on. And I am giving it everything I can just to keep the gun from being leveled up. And I jump on the radio, and Dennis Bunch, shout out to Dennis Bunch, fantastic canine handler. I mean, that dude was ready to work all the time.
Yep, he
all
wanted
the
to
time.
work,
His
that's for
dogs
sure.
were incredible. Chili
Yep,
and
he
Mars
was.
were incredible.
Dennis was a go-getter.
He got on the radio, where you at, Kaz? And I screwed up. I said Knollwood and Cross. And then I'm back at it with this guy. This dude was big. And we're on the ground. I mean, I'm fighting for my life. And he gets on the radio. Denny gets on the radio. You're not here. You're not here. And I can hear his car. I'm like one block over. So he gets there. Chili jumps out. He's got control of him. Chili's coming up. Chili was a pitch black German Shepherd.
Yeah.
All you could see was his teeth. And he is ready to do some work. And I just peeled myself away. That guy turned right over, and he was done. He wanted nothing to do with that dog. And the 357 was literally spinning on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, you had to deal with getting out of that adrenaline dump. I had some choice words for everybody that was watching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Joey Dionese shows up.
Yeah.
You know, and
Very dead.
Oh my God, he's a good guy.
but you know that and that dog really changed that dude's effort. How many years did you put in, Mark, before you?
I think, I was 17, I think. Yeah. And then I just, it just had I had 6 surgeries, and I kept trying to come in. I had pins, cables, cadaver parts.
Yeah.
And it just kept going.
Dude,
I know.
Dude, they don't. Well, maybe they did on you. They might use cables on you.
hey, the Marine, give him the cables.
dude, all that time, I thought the way you walked was just kind of like the way you did it. You know what I mean? Here comes Mark down the hallway with his cool self, just slinking his stuff. I didn't know he had all the cables and wires.
He's like the Tin Man from he's an oil gang.
Yep. That was part of it, man. It was interesting.
But you know what, dude? I know what kind of metal you come from. So you know, leaving after 17 years,
man.
I mean, you put in a solid 17, bro. Like I can remember the first time I impressed you, and it meant the freaking world to me, bro. I had a little CI telling me a little bit of stuff, and we had a guy with a pistol, and I made the stop, and you and Lauren Young helped me on the stop. And if you guys don't know who Lauren Young is, he's probably the coolest guy you ever meet. He's got a toothpick. He talks with a little southern twang. Next day, line up. The traffic stop went good. I think you had your dog there.
Yeah.
And we went up there. We got the guy. Nothing happened. Got the pistol. You know what I mean? Changed the course of that gun. Next day in lineup, you know, I'm a young buck, and Lauren's sitting there with his toothpick, and he's like, well, Kyle's had a good one last night. And I was just on it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. These guys are talking about me.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea of always wanting to find work for the canine. I wanted to find work for the canine. It was my goal. It was my goal to get after people, and if they ran from the car, you know, call the canine.
Right.
You know, so I appreciate everything you guys did, man. I mean, a lot of years of service at LPD with those dogs saved lives.
Well, thank you, and you know, it goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this. It's just, you know, it's an honor to just be with you guys, and you know, seeing what you're doing with this you know, what you're doing here in this venue, and you know, giving back. And you know, you look at LPD and police work now. I mean, they, you know, I'm sure, you know, it just really seems like, you know, obviously LPD is very young, and you know, they're doing great, and it's a good feeling that they're, you know, the current officers continue to carry on that honor within the police department. You know, we can speak about Lansing, you know, because that's us.
That's us.
You know, that's what we know.
100 years in this room.
You know,
you cut anybody in this room, we all believe
you know, and I've always said this, and throughout my career, you had a lot of opportunities to train with other departments and do things and see how other police departments worked, and LPD is, you know, the cream of the crop. I really believe that. You know, and you look at our range and the training, you know, and the Steve Reliers, the Kevin Schlegels, the Jimmy Garcias, I mean, you know, John Huddles, I mean, all the people that, you know, that you would go out and train with, you know, Steve Relier, I mean, I still talk to him, you know, I mean, I can't even imagine how many lives, how many injuries just that guy, you know, that guy's training that he provided to LPD, you know, and continues to do with new police officers in the academy. I mean, you know, it's you know, it's very valuable.
Yeah, you spent your time doing something special. You know,
You did.
When I retired from LPD, I knew I spent my time doing something special.
Yeah.
With special people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just you can't really put it in the words how satisfied, you know, you are when you step away from it. But like you said right in the beginning of this whole thing, it's a different thing when you step away from it.
It's a different thing. It continues to be.
Yeah. And
you know, I mean,
I want to honor the young guys. All the young guys, all the men and women that are going into this profession, right, that was bastardized after 2020.
Yeah.
Our profession got bastardized after 2020. Mm-hmm. And anybody that gets into law enforcement, I have so much respect for them. Look at the OISs. Before we retired, when our first 15 years, I can count the OISs, officer involved shootings, on one hand. Yeah. We've had since 2020, I think we've had 5 or 6. Yeah. And then we had the guy that challenged the officers and tried to disarm and stuff. So it's a different climate. Yeah. And for somebody to go into that profession knowing that, I honor these young guys.
Absolutely, without question.
Yeah. And they're sharp. They're sharp.
Yeah,
these young folks are sharp.
Clearly,
they are sharp.
That goes. You know, as difficult as it is nowadays, and you guys, you know, would know this, is, you know, to get good people into the profession. You know, that's difficult, and any police chief's going to tell you how challenging it is nowadays. And for LPD, it says so much about the department. And you look at the police officers that leave and end up coming back because they realize how good they had it.
So, and to branch out on what Naomi's saying about that, what you said first, is, yeah, you calculate the time. Where's this guy going to go? But that comes from great officers in their districts,
Yeah.
knowing where these guys ran, knowing the alleys, knowing the fences they would go under,
Yeah, you bet.
over, through. And to go even farther on that, when I first came into the unit, we had some great dispatchers
Yep.
who would literally set the perimeter for you. All you had to do was drive. We had some sharp dispatchers.
Yeah.
You know, and then there were times where you, as the canine officer, you were setting it on the air
Yep.
because you knew, man, I've tracked through there 8 times.
Yep.
98% chance they're going to rip down this alley, but you know that's
Yep.
not for sure.
Yep.
But it was a complete team. The dispatchers,
Yeah.
you got, you know, the community officer, that district officer can help.
Yep.
But it was, I mean, and like Norm said, if without that perimeter, you can track all day.
Yeah.
We
It's,
can
yeah.
track you all day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I will track you till my dog stops.
Right.
And we will get you eventually, but it's a huge conglomerate of what's
Yeah.
going on.
And then you know you factor in the citizen, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Citizen.
man.
You know,
Thank you.
you got
Yeah.
this
Oh, my
huge perimeter
gosh,
set
yes.
up, and it's important. And people are looking out the window wondering what the heck's going on in my neighborhood, and they're scared, and they're bringing their kids inside, and they see somebody go into a shed, and they call dispatch.
Right.
I agree. I think our dispatchers do a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
They do.
getting
There were
the
some
yeah.
sharp
Yeah.
dispatchers.
Because the
You
information's coming in fast.
knew- Yeah, they okay. I don't know how to say a word. She's going to set it for me.
Yeah.
I'm just got to get there. You know.
Yep.
Boom. Let's
Yeah.
bat it.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're tracking and you're going, say, northbound, and somebody just to your north in the direction that you're tracking calls the police and said, "Hey, I just had somebody run through my
Oh
backyard."
my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
So awesome.
That
Yeah.
was, I mean, that
Oh,
was just
man.
like,
Yep.
okay,
Yeah.
just a matter of time. And that also, you know, and that goes back to the police and the community and the relationship that you have to forge. And, you know, I'd like to talk about that also as far as what the canines did in that respect. But, you know, that was a great feeling because you knew you were on the person.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things about being a canine handler is, you know, what's the one thing that cops always want to have and never lose? Control.
Yeah.
And your success oftentimes is based on the level of control that you have over whatever scene you may be at. Do you have a lot of control over the success and failure of your dog? You got some,
Yeah.
but not a whole lot,
Right.
because there's so many other factors. You got wind, you have an urban environment, you have time, you have weather. You know, like the best time to track somebody was 5 o'clock in the morning when there was a dew on the ground. Why? Is because that dew held that scent of the human that they were leaving, because everybody leaves a scent wherever they go, and that's what the dog is tracking. And when the dog's tracking, you know, you have that dew on the ground. You knew, and also you could kind of see the footprints, but you know, you knew that you had a really good shot at getting this person versus 80-degree night where, you know, there's a 20-mile-per-hour wind
Yeah.
and, you know, the air is dry. You don't have a lot of control over that.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. You know, you fail much more than you succeed as a canine handler when you're tracking somebody, you know, especially when you're tracking. And, you know, that's difficult for some people,
Right.
police officers, because what are police officers used to having? They're used to having control.
Yeah.
Always. You
Always.
never want to lose control.
Right.
You know, some police officers, they're carry that over into their personal lives,
Right.
and that causes problems.
Right.
And, you know, that's why, you know, there's a whole nother facet that is challenging about being a law enforcement officer is the personal toll that it can take on you as a human, and also the people that love you and that are around you every day. And, but, you know, that's one of the things that we tried to instill as canine trainers, because we were both canine trainers for quite a while, you know, in the handlers that, look, be humble. You're going to fail more than you succeed. However, you learn from that and you get better.
You bet.
And because that's difficult because you're used to winning. You're used to winning. You're used to succeeding.
Yeah.
And not only, you know, you're unsuccessful on a track, for example. Who are you letting down? You're letting down the community. Who else do you feel like you let down?
Each other.
The cops that sat there for a half hour on perimeter point and you couldn't catch this person. You know, and there's that level of, you know, I failed. The embarrassment. Oh, you're supposed to be a good canine handler. You can't find anybody. That's hard. But that's part of the game. That's part of who you are as a canine handler. And when you're doing a dope search, for example, going back to the reading the dog, you want to be able to be successful, as a explosive detection dog or a narcotic detection dog. And one of the things that we always talked about is dogs communicate through body language. So when a dog on a drug search is getting close to a find, what's the three things that you look for? What's the first thing a dog starts doing when they get close to a find? They start breathing. And I can do that with my nose. And then there's that postural change where the dog stiffens. The dog's body stiffens, and then you have the final indication of the sit. And those are the things that, as a canine handler, that it takes time to learn. It takes time to recognize, because every dog is different. Every dog communicates differently. Sure. And that is, so those are the challenges, but the reward, the feeling that you get when you find somebody.
Oh, man.
And Mark, I'm sure we'll talk about his incident with Trooper Haran. The feeling that you have when you're successful at 3 o'clock in the morning, finding somebody that just committed an armed robbery that's hiding in a shed, that the cops were chasing and they bailed, you find that person, you're going to feel great. You're the cops that are around you. Good job, Mark. Good job, Norm. Good job, Oliver. Good boy. Good job, Chesty. Good boy.
Right.
Good boy, Sar. Good boy, Saber. Whoever the dog handler may be. And every dog at Lansing was successful, in some way, shape, or form. And, there's no better feeling than that. I remember Mark talking about, dude, there's nothing better than hunting a human at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yeah, you're right, Mark. There isn't.
And that's honestly, and that's not to be evil or anything, but that euphoria that you build from that hunt. I mean, they make movies about that, like that island where they let humans go and they go out and hunt them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's these are people that have done very bad things and are dead set on getting away from the police and have the capability to hurt you and the dog at the end. It's like the greatest game.
Yeah.
It's matching skill sets.
Yeah, and they're literally a public safety issue
Absolutely.
right now.
Right now.
And
we're
close to getting them. We just gotta everyone's gotta do
you gotta
their
have
part
that hunt
to get 'em.
in you gotta have that hunt in you to want to go after that. So it's definitely different.
I think it's a good time for Mark to talk about Trooper Haran and
what was
when
it?
He, when he took a round
what year
in the
was it?
chest.
Man, I don't even know, Rob. You were there.
There was a string of armed robberies within our police jurisdiction, to the point where it was not a matter of if this guy is going to hit tonight, it was when.
Right.
And we had pretty much everything the department had to offer. People coming in on overtime, sitting on gas stations, and it was a huge deal of how dangerous this guy was. And there was specific gas stations in town that officers were watching, and it just so happened that while the officers are watching this particular gas station, sure enough, this guy hit while they're there, and it's unfolding in front of them. So take it from there, Mac.
So I guess to piggyback on that even farther is one of the great officers at our department, Frank Mobley, was actually sitting on this business.
Yep.
They were plainclothes, UC car sitting on this business, and this car came up to Frank, and I talked to Frank about this. He's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like he's getting like, this is strange. And the guy flashes a badge. He goes, "Hey, MSP, undercover, go ahead, we got this one." And Frank's like, well, I'm kind of assigned here, but okay. Yeah. So, he'll go and grab another spot. So Frank got kicked off by Tim.
Yeah.
So Tim said he pulled in and he got where Frank was. And, it was probably within half hour, 45 minutes, dude walks. This is a Quality Dairy. What was it? God, it was on the
Cedar Mount Hope.
No,
No, it was the gas station on Mount Hope.
Yeah, it used to be a Shell.
Just east.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
just east of MLK.
Yep.
And Tim sees somebody walking around the side, and goes in there, pulls out a gun, starts robbing the place. Tim's kind of like, I mean, it's happening now, and I'm going to solve this. He went ripping up to it, opened the door. MSP police started to come up. Boom! Took one right in the chest from the guy, right at the scene. So Tim gets stunned by that. The guy runs back around, jumps in the car, and it's like pouring rain. I mean, it's like, dude, it's like pouring rain. And Tim calls that out. And so now the cavalry's coming, and like from everywhere, people are just pouring out. Well, I was sitting in lineup because I was working days, believe it or not, days. And I heard it go out, and I just immediately stood up and went to my car. And there's like this chase going down Mount Hope, and it's like 80, 90 miles an hour, and the guy's firing rounds out of the car.
Wow.
Goes down to Cedar Street, takes a left. And for some reason, he went down Christiansey. And we all know Christiansey's what?
Dead end, yeah.
With a cul-de-sac. And there's like this raging gun battle on Christiansey. Bam, bam, bam. They're shooting at him. He's shooting at them. And he gets out and runs back down towards the John Bean building. And that's where I had finally made it to Christiansey. I went up Christiansey. They're like, no. They got a better start spot for you over by John Bean. So I went out to John Bean, and I think Sergeant Madrano, he was sergeant at the time, was like, hey, we got a spot right here. So I'm like, game time. And Chesty was revved just from the lights and sirens already, banging back and forth in the car. And went and got Chesty, and we went up by a dumpster. Went around the dumpster a couple times, and like Chesty's head up. I'm like, uh-oh. And then bam, he went nose down. Chesty was a trailer, not a tracker. He would track a little higher to get the stuff that came up. Like a lot of dogs, when you see them, they're like nose to the ground, but he went nose to the ground. I'm like, we're on him. And I just started letting out the lead as far as I could let it out. Made it to the side of John Bean there. And all of a sudden, the dude popped out from behind a big air conditioning vent with a gun. I was like, no, Chesty down, and put him down and came up on him. And I'm like, he got a few cuss words at that point. But luckily enough, the guy just took the gun and dropped it. And he'd been hit in the head. He had like a canoe in his head. The round had hit his skull and opened him up. And it was like, there was smoke coming out of it, and then all these guys came up, put him in custody, and that was game time. But and I didn't know who Haran was at that time. Believe it or not, this is the great part about it. Had no idea who he was. Went back, wrote the report, and a couple days later, he came into the precinct, and he's like, "Hey, are you the?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it turns out we lived not even a mile from each other.
Wow.
Yeah, we became trained. We lifted every day and just became great family friends. Him and his wife, just the best people.
Do you think that dog had an impact on him when he was hiding behind there?
100%. The dog caused him, because I mean he's already been in a gun battle with however many units,
Yeah.
And he came up with that. It was a big, man. It was a long 357, and the hammer was back on it.
Yeah.
So he was on single action. It was going to go to guns, and I just didn't want to have to shoot through Chesty and let him engage. So I just put him in the down, and then the guy, he came up, and you could see the thinking, like, am I going to do this or not? And then he dropped it.
Cause that's what you brought up is a valuable thing to talk about. Is obviously police work, like many other things, sports, it's about statistics. And you know, as far as canine, I had this many tracks, I had this many successful tracks, I had this many dope searches, explosive searches, building searches, area searches, all those type of things. You have a stat. You have to keep stats. That's, you know, and then the chief writes a report at the end of the year on a year-end report on the Lansing Police Department, and all those stats are in that book. But the one stat that is the most valuable thing that a canine provides that you can never measure and you will never ever know is the psychological deterrent that the police dog provided to prevent somebody from doing something further and doing further harm. And that's what Mark's talking about. Sure. If the dog wasn't there and they're walking up in a diamond formation or whatever type of tactical formation they have, would if he engaged them? Probably. It certainly sounds like it. But that dog, that psychological deterrent, you know, of just a police dog showing up and barking, you know, on, you know, that's the thing that you can never measure, but it's one of the most valuable things that a police dog provides, especially in an urban environment.
Sure. How about tracks? Like, what's your most memorable track? Like the one that sticks out the most? I know you had tons of them, but
you know, the one that comes to mind is there was a homicide, car chase down 496. 3 guys bailed on the west side. We're tracking, and it was, you know, it was a good. I mean, it was dead. You know, the victim was dead on the scene, and you know, and there was 3 people involved. Got the car chase. 3 guys bailed. You know, I caught 2 of the 3, and then Mark caught the 3rd one.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yes, you know, and that was you know. And those people are still in prison today. Yeah. You know, and so.
Articles? Did you find the guns or anything on the site?
Yes. Actually, they were. You could see them. I mean, we didn't find them. When they bailed, they dumped them right by the car.
Gotcha.
And, you know, and just there was a lot of, you know, I mean, we were talking. You know, I've never been a storyteller, so I don't always hang on to stories.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's one of, you know, many that...
To get 2 people involved in a homicide off one track,
yeah.
that takes a lot of skill to shift your dog off, come back, get geared back up, and go after another guy.
And then him and I got the 2nd one, he was in a shed, or no, he was in a garage, open garage, and I remember I called him over, you know, and we got the guy out of there. And
so that dog literally has to reset, right?
Reset.
Yeah, and how you do that is interesting. Is, you know, dogs have a prey drive, play drive, and a pack drive. And when the dog is, you know, you have to be able to switch a dog's drives. So when they're in prey drive, you know, for example, when they're running after somebody and, you know, you want an apprehension, for example, you know, to call that dog back, you know, they call it a recall, which obviously is something that's very difficult because you're calling that dog, you know, you're removing their prey drive. But, you know, one of how you switch dogs' drives is you just go back to pack drive and you do obedience with the dog. And oftentimes, like, you know, if you're doing a building search and then the person's not in there and you get information that they ran from the building, you know, you have to get that dog into, you know, getting into a track. And, you know, one of the things that you do is you do obedience with the dog for a couple minutes, and then you switch over to do the track. You go back to pack drive and then into prey drive.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, those are things that you learn, you know, throughout your career.
When we talk about like finding stuff on a track, when Rob and I were in VCI, there was a shooting up near the airport, and the suspect vehicle was described and left the scene. I happened to pick it up way in the north end, and it got onto the highway. I was in an unmarked car, and I was following this thing. I followed all the way out to Wheatfield Township. And halfway to Wheatfield, they figured it out. Like, this guy's following me.
Wow,
halfway?
Yeah. So they're in a minivan. They're in a minivan. I'm in my car. And I have to give props. This girl could flat out drive. The shooter was in the front seat, female driver, and she is driving. I mean, good driving. I almost lose her. It is what it is. It was what it was. It was a chase out in the sticks. Somewhere during that time, the guy threw the gun out the window. It was in the wet season too. So when I got help from the county, we get the guy. He's got rounds in his pocket, so we know we got the right person. MSP came in with their dogs. They cycled 3 dogs the entire length of that pursuit from when I called it out to where we ended up. Mm-hmm. And they did a grid, and they ended up finding that gun in the mud.
Yeah.
Halfway in the mud. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. All the way. I mean, it was miles that they had to search, but they brought one dog, switched next dog, and then I got the phone call. Yeah, we got the pistol.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That was really cool to see.
And how good did you feel after that?
Oh, I felt great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I felt great. Yeah. And then I had to write the report.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
felt great doing that. Yeah, for a long time.
Cosby said the word report.
Yeah.
Okay. You almost had me, bro. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out this episode of Hold the Air podcast. We want to give a huge shout out to 180 Woodworks. Check them out on Facebook. And thank you for the cool Hold the Air podcast studio swag, Dave.
Some girl got chopped up down there between Larch and Cedar.
Oh, no.
And Wendy's and the Point. And Danny Riedel was there at that. And I walked in there and I was like, man, this is like Manson in here.
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere, a meat cleaver.
Oh, wow.
It was like, I'm looking around for like Squeaky Fromm and Charles Manson in here. and we go out on this track and we track this dude along the river. And Dan's running with me, calling it out. And lo and behold, we get close. And I know we're close. I'm like, Dan, we're close. And we see the dude pop out along the river. And I'm like, Lansing, please stop or I'm going to send the dog. And he was about halfway out on my track lead, and the guy refused to stop. He went, that's it, boom, he's off. You know, we got a great release on this. He's accused in a brutal thing. And as the dog leaps to engage the guy dives into the river. Mm. And they hit the river at the same time. The dog pops off the bite and is now barking the guy out to the middle of the river. So now I got to switch the dog. I'm like, no, Chesty, come. So I pull him in off the lead and I hand him to Dan. I'm like, hold the dog. And I'm thinking, oh my God. All right, Danny, hold the dog. So he held the dog. I just ripped off all the gear and radios and swam out there and got that guy. But that dog had to switch from, I'm going to bite this guy, to a second, to being held by a different officer. So it's, I don't know. There's some things that are a little dicey, but you know, you got to switch those dogs' drives.
Yeah. Yep.
To suit the need, you know.
But again, right? What other better tool for that moment?
Absolutely.
Than a dog.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I don't swim. If that was me,
no.
that dude would drown.
Hey, that water's nasty too.
Thanks for watching this episode of Hold the Air podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your house and want to work with a realtor that's honest, dependable, and has integrity? Gift Jeff Lenneman a call at Lenneman Real Estate at Keller Williams Realty right here in Lansing. Call 517-256-6683.
I want to shift gears to something specifically with you, Norm. There's a leadership expert. His name's Orrin Woodward. And Orrin Woodward was describing, it had nothing to do with police work or anything like that, but it certainly applies here and specifically to you, Norm, is he's talking about if there was a pendulum and a person that's on that pendulum on one extreme one way, you could call them wimp. And one extreme the other way, you could call them jerk. And right in the middle of that is what he was describing as the word posture, which is you're not gonna push me around. I'm not a wimp, but I'm also gonna be very, very professional, and I'm not gonna be a jerk. And I think in that arena, nobody is better than Norm Naimy. And what I would like, and I don't know if you even know how you do it, right? But we trace our bloodline back to guys like you, watching how you did it on the street, and so thankful for what we learned directly or even indirectly, because it was watching you work. It wasn't ever you saying, okay, well, here's the playbook, here's how you do this, here's it. Never once did I ever have you say that to me that I remember. But watching you, and Mark too, but watching you was absolutely incredible. And what I would like to say next, and to kind of kick it in your corner, man, is directly related to the officer that's either brand new or newer, that's trying to figure it out. And, you know, it is a grind, and it does take years of experience, and you do have to learn from watching others of what works and what doesn't. And for somebody like me, it took me years and years and years, and a lot of mentorship through Kaz, and watching him do it is to get that meter to be right in the middle for me. It took a lot of work, but man, Norm, nobody does it better than you. And what I want you to do is, if you don't mind, is talk to the officer that's brand new or newer on how you did it to where your posture is right in the middle between wimp and jerk. And it was just always spot on for the situation. If you even know that, you probably don't even recognize that you're doing it, but even if you don't necessarily know exactly what it is that you do, just be relatable and what that means to you. How do you know the difference between wimp and jerk?
Well, Rob, I can't thank you enough. That is obviously makes me feel really good, and honored that you say those things. You know, you talk about the impact, the positive impact that you want to have. You know, and quite honestly, I don't know how I always did it, but that's what I always tried to do. And I can tell you, so much of how I approached situations was empathy. I always did my best to put myself in that person's shoes and see the situation through their eyes so I could respond appropriately. And I can tell you this, how I was able to do that is in large part due to the good and the bad life experiences that I had growing up, coming into police work, the things that I experienced growing up, a lot of the, you know, and I personally experienced a lot of personal trauma growing up, not to my doing. And I think that really helped me, what I witnessed, what I experienced, what I, you know, was the victim of. I think that allowed me to, a lot of situations I would draw on that experience, and I was able to see things through other people's eyes and understand where they were coming from so I could respond appropriately. And to have that life experience, and to realize also that everybody that you come in contact has a story.
You bet.
You don't know what that person's been through in their life. Don't make assumptions. You know, everybody's got a story. You don't know what that person just experienced that day. Now, with that being said, you always have to remember that you have a responsibility to keep yourself and others around you safe. Secondly, is you have to be able to realize that you are the police, you are authority, you're not going to be challenged. You can have a heart, and approaching police work with a heart is imperative. Approaching police work with empathy is imperative. With that being said, when it's time to show a fist, you know, there's a book out there, The Heart and the Fist, written by a commander in the military. And you have to have a heart, and you got to have a fist. You got to know when to use your heart, and you got to know when to use your fist. But being in the middle, like you talked about, when you approach situations like that, you'll know which way to go. And it takes a long time to figure out, do I need to go here or do I need to go here? But it starts with being as empathetic as you possibly can. Is there situations where you don't have time to be empathetic? Absolutely. You got to take care of business. It's time to be on this end of the pendulum.
You've got
You know, but there's also times to be on the other end of the pendulum and start in the middle. Don't start over here, don't start over there, start in the middle. You figure out which way to go.
Right.
And I was able to do that, I think, effectively through just my own life experience, you know, and understanding people and understanding humans. It's difficult nowadays for police officers and anybody in general to understand basic human nature. Why? Is because we don't communicate that way anymore. And it's not, you know, young people's fault because they're brought up, you know, a lot of them weren't even born, you know, on 9/11. You know, think about how 9/11 changed police work. You know, think about how Ferguson, Missouri changed police work. You know, Minneapolis, Minnesota changed police work. You know, prior to that, it was Rodney King in L.A. You know, and there's always something. But, you know, and thank you again, Rob, for, you know, the words that you said. But I really think that it comes with understanding people, that empathy, that being able to see things through somebody else's eyes and have a heart and understand and be able to help that person, you know, and to know that at the end of, you know, 2 years down the road, we've all had this happen.
Oh, I know you're going with this.
You know,
This is
we've
spot
all
on.
had this happen.
This is spot on.
You know,
You're right. And, yep.
you're in the quality area getting a water or a soda or whatever in uniform, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Officer Naimy, you know, hey, Officer Forbes, hey, Officer Cosme, hey, Officer McAleer, you know, a couple years ago you were at my house and you arrested me, and, you know, I got into it with my wife and things went really bad, and, you know, I just was at a bad time in my life, but you came in and you treated me with respect, you treated me with dignity, and, you know, thank you. You know, I'm in a much better place.
Yep.
You know, things are good in my life. I got a good job." How good does that make you
Oh
feel?
man.
Oh,
How good does that make you feel?
That is what keeps you going.
Oh,
Yep.
you know, you talk
Validates.
having knowing that you had that positive impact. If you can have a positive impact, and everybody in this room can look back on their careers and say, "I had a positive impact." You, Coase, you know, you, Rob, you guys took a lot of bad people off the street, but you did it the right way.
Yeah.
And you look back, you should feel good. We should all feel good about ourselves.
I think
you know,
that's-
because it all ends.
Yeah.
You know, I look in the mirror. I'm 58. I look at myself on the screen right here. I'm like, my God, what happened? You know, but I'm like, you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, the nobility of the police profession. You know, you are really, you know, everybody talks about our democracy right now, and democracy's under fire. I tell you, we all can agree. Police officers are you know, in Blue Courage we learned, you know, police officers, you are the guardians of democracy. Democracy would not exist if it wasn't for the police.
Damn right.
Unfortunately, you know, that's not recognized, especially nowadays. But you are the guardians of democracy. And, you know, we wouldn't have a democracy if it wasn't for the police.
Right.
And keeping law and order.
Right.
And keeping the peace and serving the community and serving those underprivileged. And, you know, and that's, we should all be proud of what we've done,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
because it comes to an end, and it's
It
hard.
is.
It's hard to walk away. You know, you go from hero to zero,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a tough transition. It is.
Let me just say this, that Rob, you're exactly right with Norm. I mean, and write this down, kids, new guys, whatever. What is leadership? And, you know, there's a Webster's, and I'm going to tell you, leadership is the ability to inspire ordinary men and women to accomplish extraordinary events. And there is nobody better than him. Now, where I came from, we were the fist. Every day, the Marines, we were the fist. And quite honestly, if I had been in a department and I hadn't met Norm, I'd have probably been a fist. But the way he carried himself on the street and the ability to talk to people and joke around and stay in the middle and stay neutralized, and the way he treats people on calls, I just watched and I'm like, man, this is great. But this, when you talk about leadership, there's a command structure, chief, assistant chief, undersheriff, sheriff, you know, whatever. true leadership is the people that inspire you on the street to accomplish extraordinary events. And there's nobody better than Normie at that. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to have, he's my best friend. But I was very fortunate to have that aspect kind of beat into my head so that I didn't go out on, I didn't go out on the far end of the pendulum and be, man, that's just this hard guy coming every night. True. So to neutralize, like Norm taught me, was there's never been anybody better at LPD at that. And unfortunately, I didn't know the older fellows. I'm sure there were dudes like Norm that
A lot of them.
that got people to center up too by their actions. But the ability to inspire ordinary men and women to accomplish extraordinary events nightly, that's like you said, there's that dude that comes walking down, we're good. Let's jam, baby.
Oh, yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Let's hunt.
It's huge. It's
Yep.
huge.
So it's...
And, the personalities that you guys have, obviously, your canine success was a direct result of that. Yeah. If you go in handling a canine, imagine if you're a cocky dude and you're Mr. Fist guy all the time and you get a dog, I got to believe the dog's going to be that way too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%
No question.
cost.
No question.
No, you are a reflection of that dog.
Yeah.
I would be a fool to not capitalize on your influence on this conversation right now, because we are talking about the difference between wimp and jerk and how Norm's perspective on that is. I don't think that there's anybody more clear of an example live and in color watching him work besides you. And
I agree with that.
Besides you. And I saw you making a connection with people on the street that, because to circle back real quick about what Norm was talking about with Blue Courage, there is something noble about rushing to somebody's aid that is a total stranger.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do CPR on a family member. It's another thing to do CPR on the scene of a shooting on somebody you didn't know. Right. And we're trying to put life back into them when everybody's running out. Hey, it reminds me, Z, pull up on the little interweb there. There's a video. Who's the rapper that I'm trying to think of? I think it's Lil Wayne. Do Lil Wayne interview shooting?
Oh yeah, he talks about Big Bob.
He talks about getting shot.
Yep.
And he talks about there you go. So Lil Wayne, this famous, very, very famous rapper, to kind of summarize it, is he talks about he's at this environment or whatever, party or whatnot. He'll describe it himself, but to paraphrase, he's at this party and he gets shot. And everybody at the party is running over him to get out the door, and the police are running in and saved his life. And it just emphasizes the nobility of what you're talking about, Norm, of what this job is.
Age of 12 years old, I shot myself. I was in the house. Police knocked on the door. I was right there. They knocked the door down.
He's 12.
Everybody jumped over my
I
body
don't remember
to go get the guns.
But
and
it's a fascinating
whatever
interview.
they could find. It took one guy to stop right there and cuss everybody that hopped over me out. Like, what the f*** are y'all doing? They said, oh, no. We was going to see if it... What the f*** are y'all doing? We called the ambulance. An ambulance, do you not see this kid on the floor with this hole in his chest? Say, you drive. Pick me up. Brought me to the hospital. He didn't drop me off at the ambulance and say, you take him. He brought me to the hospital room and made two and stood there and waited till the doctor said he's gonna make it. He said, don't worry, my name's Uncle Bob. He was white as snow.
So, that just kind of capitalizes of what you're talking about, Norm. And
what Mark said too.
Yeah, 100%.
Jumping in the river, dude. You peeled your uniform off. They always say don't go in the river. You went from chasing a bad guy, releasing your dog, to then jumping in the river and saving a guy who apparently just did something atrocious. It's a different thing.
So here, look, we know who you are in this, the people in this room know who you are, but not everybody out there that's going to watch this, is directly related to, your story or has had the privilege of spending time with you face to face. But if I was going to describe John Cosme and the reason why I'm so deeply rooted that you're the best of ever is there's nobody better at making a connection in a crisis on the spot with somebody that you don't know, somebody you're meeting for the very first time and their life is in shambles for whatever reason. The police were called to this location. You make a connection with someone and you do the best I've ever seen at making it okay. Because ultimately, I think that we would all agree when somebody's in a crisis for whatever it is, more often than not, they want reassurance that it's going to be okay. And it comes back to Norm having the posture of, in that moment, you need authority and it's going to be me and I've got your back, and explain if you can, put it into words for somebody that's brand new out there. What is something that you feel yourself doing on a call or whatever as you make the connection with someone because you are flat out the best at it?
I appreciate it, Rob. It's humbling, but it's a service job. I always looked at it as a service job. I'm on the clock and I'm supposed to provide a service. I'm not supposed to provide my ego to someone. I'm not supposed to provide judgment to someone. I literally got to figure out what's going on in front of me, and I've got to service them the best way that I can, because that's what I'm paid to do. And then you fall in love with that. You don't fall in love with the idea that you're the police. We already know we're the police. We got the badge on it. We've got the training. We've got all the stuff. We got our boys and men that are going to watch our back call after call, but it's service first. You have to provide the service. And then if they want to get dirty, then you get dirty with them. If they ask for it, you give it to them. But they're always asking for service. Sometimes they don't know how to say it.
Sure.
They don't know how to communicate, because like Norm said, these backgrounds are completely different. Everybody's completely different. But damned if I'm not gonna shut up and listen and try to figure it out and give them the service they're supposed to. It was something very, very important to me, and it was given to me as a gift from my parents. 100%. Anything that I excel in life, I track back to them. My dad, he didn't say a lot, but he said a lot. You know what I mean? My mom was so sweet when she tried to teach us lessons, but don't get it twisted. She whipped my ass many times. But Dad never did. Dad was just you talk about posture. He just has it. And I guess, you grow up a family of 9 like I did, and you watch that, and you want that posture, and you don't even realize it, but you want it. You want that thing. And I was blessed to have 2 parents, and they're still alive. So shout out to my dad and to my mom. He turned 92. He likes to say he's 29, but he turned 92, and my mom's 90. She's been dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia for a very long time. And you talk about posture. Watching my dad be able to become someone else, it's incredible, because he's with his lady, right?
Yeah.
And he has to recreate that because she doesn't always remember. So I got my shit from my dad. I got my shit from my mom.
That's awesome.
And I'm okay sharing that. I'm okay taking the loss. I'm okay you calling me whatever you want to call me. You know what I mean? If you want to make this a game, I can play that too. You want to run around the city and act like you're not going to be held accountable? I got more friends than you do.
You bet.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I got goosebumps in the back of my head talking about this, dude, because I want to put my uniform on.
Let's go.
I want to put my uniform on right now and chase somebody in the river.
Yeah, we'll run the north end right now.
But I appreciate what you said, dude. But I'm in the company of that kind of lineage. So
we couldn't. You can't get there. I said this from stage. When I was fortunate enough to be awarded Officer of the Year, I made it known. I don't. That does not happen. As honorable as that is, and as proud of that as I am, and my family is of me, that does not come my way without the influence of Norm Naimy, Mark McAleer, and especially John Cosby. It just we do this job. Everybody starts at their own level of where they start from, but those that are the ferocious students. And we got a lot of years experience in here, and we're all going to say the same thing. I kept learning until the day I left. I never stopped learning. Right. And when you come to the table that way, because I always wanted to get better. I always wanted to strive, and when I was able to work with the violent crime team and shared a cubicle with you, that's when my career went from the level that I had established to a whole nother level of stratosphere that I didn't even know existed. So, it's fun to go down memory lane with you guys, and I'm so thankful, Norm and Mac, for coming in here, and yes. Kaz. We knew that these guys were going to come in here and be a blast, and so thankful. What let me ask you guys this as we kind of wrap up here. If you guys were going to say something, your perspective, your words of wisdom, so to speak, if you're going to say something to the brand new officer starting just out of the academy and they're starting today, what would your perspective be to them? What would you like to tell them?
Always do the right thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. And you know what it is, right? Yep. You know when you do something bad.
Yeah. Just always do the right thing.
Yep.
Always do the right thing. Treat people with dignity, treat people with respect, and be good to your family.
Yep.
Because when you leave police work's going to be behind you. What you're going to have is what you walk into every day at your house. Mm-hmm. And take care of those people.
Yep.
Take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, it's the best. Man, this is the greatest show on earth. Let's be honest.
Love you.
And when people say, man, what do you miss? I'm like, I don't miss the circus, but I miss the clowns. And that's the guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, you can't put a perspective on that. But if it was for the new person, I mean, it's a new world out there, man. It is different. It really is. And the politics, you just can't let that play into. You got to, like Kaz says, it's a service, and you got to stay with that, and it's you got to give them 100% every night, because there's no place like first place.
Yeah, man.
It's 100%, and take care, like Normie said, take care of yourself, your family, but rock it, man. It's a great, great profession.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, fellas.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks,
Awesome.
fellas.
All right, man.
Hey,
thanks, man.
appreciate you guys.
Thanks so much.